Hello everyone, this is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study with paper 55, The Age of Light and Life, and we're on section 6, The Individual Mortal, and that starts on page 630. And I'm here tonight with Millie and my wife Diane.
Rodney's online.
And I just saw Rodney come on, so we'll have him.
There he is.
So let's say a prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. We pray that you'll watch over this meeting and bless it tonight. Open our hearts and minds that we might learn something and share it with others. We thank you for the opportunity to do this, and we give you the praise in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Diane, would you start with section number 6, the individual mortal?
Can I take the next one after that, Roger?
Yeah.
I'm trying to...
Yeah, I'll take the first one then. 6, the individual mortal. As worlds advance in the settled status of light and life, society becomes increasingly peaceful. The individual, while no less independent and devoted to his family life, has become more altruistic and fraternal. Y'all know what altruistic is, right?
Giving.
Giving, that's right. And more, he shares more, to be more fraternal and with other people. And let's see, let's go on to the next one. You ready, Diane? You want to take the next one?
Hello.
Hi, Tim.
How you doing?
Good. You want to
Can you
take the
hear me
next
okay?
one? Yeah, we hear you
Yes,
fine.
we can hear
Good, wonderful. I'm glad to
Diane,
be here tonight.
would you take the next one, please? You out there, Diane?
I am out. I'm having a hard time right now, Roger. I'll be-
Okay, Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. On your Roger, and as you are, you can have little appreciation of the advanced status and progressive nature of the enlightened races of these perfected worlds. These people are flowering in the evolutionary races. But such beings are still mortal. They continue to breathe, eat, sleep, and drink. This great evolution is not heaven, but it is a sublime and foreshadowing of the divine worlds of the paradise of sin.
So what they're trying to tell us is that when you get to the age of light and life, it's much like what the mansion worlds will be like, when we get there. So it kind of gives us a foretaste of the mansion worlds and the paradise regimes that they're talking about here. So let's see if I can get this to work. Oh, there we go. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
On a normal world, the biological fitness of the mortal race was long since brought up to a high level during the post-Adamic epochs, and now from age to age throughout the settled eras, the physical evolution of man continues. Both vision and hearing are extended. By now, the population has become stationary in numbers. Reproduction is regulated in accordance with planetary requirements and innate hereditary endowments. The mortals on a planet during this age are divided into from 5 to 10 groups, and the lower groups are permitted to produce only one half as many children as the higher. The continued improvement of such a magnificent race throughout the era of light and life is largely a matter of a selective reproduction of those racial strains which exhibit superior qualities of a social, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual nature.
Okay, so this tells us there is hope for all planets to not get overpopulated, population get out of control, because these things are are controlled when we reach the age of light and life, and only the superior mortals who have the highest qualities of social, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual nature are allowed to reproduce. And it's done on a very controlled nature, and that's what the Adam and Eves and the planetary, or the material sons and daughters are supposed to be doing, in charge of this. So this is something we have to look forward to. It also mentions here that in a normal planet, the post-Adamic epochs, this has already started, but this is not started on our planet, in our post-Adamic epoch, because of our default of our Adam and Eve. All right. Rocky, would you take the next one, please, sir?
Surely. The adjusters continue to come as in former evolutionary eras. And as the epochs pass, these mortals are increasingly able to commune with the indwelling Father Fragment. During the embryonic and pre-spiritual stages of development, the adjutant mind spirits are still functioning. The Holy Spirit and the ministry of angels are even more effective as the successive epochs of subtle life are experienced. In the first stage of light and life, the advanced mortals seem to experience considerable conscious contact with the spirit presence of the Master Spirit of super-universe jurisdiction, while the philosophy of such a world is focused upon the attempt to comprehend the new relations of God the Supreme. More than one half of the human inhabitants on planets of this advanced status experience translation to the Mirage's state from among the living. Even so, all things are passing away. Behold, all things are becoming new.
Does this sound familiar? That's a quote of Jesus there. Yeah, okay. Now they're talking about, as we go through these epochs of light and life, that the adjutant mind spirits are still functioning, especially for the very young and as people are growing up. The Holy Spirit and the ministry angels are more effective because at a younger life we learn about spiritual things and are taught about spiritual things much younger. And they go on to tell us that the spirit presence of the master spirit, the 7 master spirits that surround paradise, and there's a master spirit for each of the 7 super universes, that we actually start having a conscious contact with that 7th master spirit, or the master spirits of our super universe. And we also start to comprehend more of the revelations of God the Supreme as we get higher and higher on the ages of light and life. So.
Hey Roger, I had a question.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand Section 4, Administrative Readjustments. Dubs and bursts.
I'm sorry?
Something popped up on my computer. See this, 24 hours postponed. The first 7 levels. The first 7 levels. 1 through 7, where it says the first stage of light and life. These are going to be the levels where it counts down 1 through 7. So finally, at the 7th level, it's already in the stage. It's in the stage of light and life. Whereas the planet already in the stage of light and life, and then the 7 levels occur.
The planet's already in the age of light and life, and then the 7 levels start.
Okay, and then those 7 levels have to do with the administrative readjustments, those individuals that intervene.
That's right. That's the administrative readjustments, and they mirror the ascension plan. That's the whole point of that, is as when we hit light and life, the planet itself will follow along the same sort of pathway that a human or a mortal does as he goes through the progression plan. And the planet goes through its own progression plan administratively.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Roger.
everything goes through those stages. The people do, the humans do, and the planet does, and the universe does.
That's
and
right. That's right.
the super universe does.
Even Jesus went through the 7 stages of light and life when he was physically on the planet. Okay, so even
Yes.
he had the 7 levels of experience of light and life when he was here on this planet experiencing his life. So if he can do it, we can do it, right? All right. Rodney, you just read, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm up then. We conceive that physical evolution will have attained its full development by the end of the 5th epoch of the era of light and life era. We observe that the upper limits of spiritual development associated with evolving human mind are determined by the adjuster fusion level of conjoint Morancha values and cosmic meanings. But concerning wisdom, we do not really know. We conjecture that there can never be a limit to intellectual evolution and the attainment of wisdom. On the 7th stage world, wisdom can exhaust the material potentials, enter upon moda insight, and eventually even taste of absonite grandeur. Now, something I didn't mention in the previous paragraph is that at this stage of light and life, over half of the mortals fuse with their adjusters in the physical life. So half of the mortals leave the planet by adjuster fusion rather than death at this point. So, and they're talking here by the time we hit the 7th level, or the upper limits of spiritual development, then we're reaching to the mental or human ability, mental-wise, to get as high as we can as we reach, as they're talking about wisdom here. Okay, so the higher we get, the more the worlds go higher and higher, the closer we get to more and more wisdom, and it gets to the point where the material body or the material potential enter upon moda insight. In other words, we get to that point where we actually start to impinge on Morancha moda in the physical form. Okay, and they go on to tell us that even can go up to absonite grandeur, and we won't deal with dealing with absonites until we get to the 7 rings of Havona. So we're talking about an evolution that goes very, very high at this point.
Hey Roger, is wisdom compared to experience? Is that pretty much what they're saying?
No, wisdom does compare to experience in some aspects, Tim, but wisdom is the combination of experience and mental capabilities that we learn, and also it is the threshold of what they call Morancha moda. So the wiser we become, the closer we become to Morancha moda. And if we think about the beings that we know of that has fused and left the planet, like Enoch and Elijah and people like that, these are guys that dedicated their entire life and being to learning the will of God in their life. So they became wiser and wiser, and they probably started to impinge on that Morancha moda. So what happened? They fused with their adjuster. You know, it was time for them to go on to the next step. They went as far as they could in this life, and that's what they want us to do. They want us to grow as high as we possibly can in the physical being, so that sometime in the future, sometime in our life, we could actually fuse with the adjuster. And more of us will be able to do this over time. All right?
So Roger,
Yeah.
could you imagine being born in an era like this and living, growing up, and then I guess you would, most people fuse with their adjuster. Would they be resurrected in the same hall as us lowlives?
Yeah, they would. They would be.
But they would advance quickly.
They would advance quickly through the mansion worlds, Rodney. And you remember when we studied the mansion worlds, that every 10 days they would advance till they end up on the mansion worlds at the level where they are personally, right? So that they would start out on the first mansion world. In 10 days they'd probably advance to the second mansion world, maybe the third, maybe the fourth, maybe the fifth. And eventually they will reach the mansion world that they fit on, okay? But they still have to go back to the previous mansion worlds and teach to gain the experience of being on that mansion world. So,
Hey Roger,
yeah.
in your opinion, do you think the Urantia book will still be around?
Oh yeah, I think it will be. I think it's going to be around for 10,000 years, to be honest.
That's great.
Yeah, because see, this is our primer to the Morontia state, and I'm sure there'll be other revelations when we're ready to receive more information. There'll be other revelations, but I still think this will be the primer for everyone to start out on, and I think it'll be that way for 10,000 years because people's psychic abilities do not change over time. They still start at the bottom and work their way up, right? So even if we are, as a planet, on a more advanced state, they still have to learn the basics. And this is one of the best ways to learn the basics, is the book, right?
You mentioned the word psychic. What does that mean again?
I'm talking about their, when I use psychic that time, I'm talking about their understanding of the cosmos more than anything else.
Okay, when that word comes up, the psychic circles.
Yeah.
So how do I pronounce that? How do I interpret that?
Well, the psychic circles are just your ability to comprehend God the Father, the ascension plan, and how you fit in the cosmos or the super universe.
Because I know it sometimes when I mention that word psychic and I gave it a meaning like soul, you completely agreed. You said, yeah. It means soul circles.
Soul circles. That's a perfect explanation of it. But keep in mind, even the angels themselves do not have a full comprehension of where the soul comes from or the path of the soul. It's a mystery, you know. So it's really, we could call it the mystery circles, you know, because it's an understanding of God the Father, the ascension plan, and where we are in the cosmos, basically, you know, and where you fit in. So
that's a good way to look at it, the mystery circles.
Yeah. Okay. Diane, are you ready?
Okay.
Can you take the next one?
We observed that on these highly evolved and long seventh stage worlds, human beings fully learn the local universe language before they are translated. And I have visited a few very old planets where Abenonders were teaching the older mortals the tongue of the super universe. And on these worlds I have observed the technique whereby the Absonite personalities reveal the presence of the Finaladers in the Morontia temple.
Okay, so we're talking about here that when we get to the seventh stage, many people become very highly evolved, okay? And in those planets, the Abendonters, or basically the Finaladers, reveal themselves to the older, more wise mortals, and they start to teach them the tongue of the local universe, and then they also start to teach them the tongue of the super universe, which is an expansion of the local universe. So it's kind of interesting as you become more spiritual, you have access to higher training, right?
So hey Roger, they mentioned two words here. They mentioned translated, which we know that before you fuse with your adjuster, you have to learn the universe language.
That's right.
And then they mentioned the word Abendonters. Doesn't that sound like Agendonters? Those individuals that see without, believing or believe without seeing.
That's what they're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not Agendonters, it's Abendonters?
Abendonters, that's right. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's what we will be called when we become Finaladers, because we come from a planet that's in rebellion, and we have made it all the way to paradise. Okay, and Abundanter means, the definition of that is believing without seeing, having faith without seeing. Okay, so we are cut off from the universe circuit, so we have to learn by total faith. We don't see all these things we're talking about. We don't see the phonalators on our planet. We don't see the planetary prince. And we don't see many, many things on it. We don't see the angels on this planet. So we have to have faith and believe without seeing in these personalities. So
Well, I sure do love reading this Revelation. It's
yeah,
wonderful.
it's amazing, isn't it? Okay, Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes, I will. We've had difficulty trying to describe how you advance mentally and are able to grasp the higher concept. And I think a good term is mental acuity.
That's a beautiful term, Millie.
But would it also be wisdom too, Roger?
Yes, it would be wisdom also, but it takes mental acuity to gain wisdom.
What
You
is
have
it?
to have the mental ability to do it. You have to look it
Yeah.
up. I can't give you a definition, but
Yeah.
mental acuity.
Yeah, you have to be willing. You have to be capable, because it is, like I've said before, it takes intellectual stamina to read this book and to stay with it and to learn all the concepts. It's not an easy thing to do, and many people will never do it in this lifetime. But
What would
it
you recommend? Go ahead.
needs to be done. You know.
I was going to say, what would you recommend on how to teach a beginner how to study?
I think the best thing to teach a beginner how to study, it seems to be for most people, is start with the Jesus Papers, because it reads like a novel, you know. But I think it's important that individuals get with older readers and get explanations as they read through the first couple parts of the book, because it helps you to understand the book. And that's the goal. And the more you understand, the more the book becomes part of you. And you read it over and over again, then you start absorbing these things. And once you own those concepts, then as you read the book, everything becomes crystal clear to you. I can honestly say, at this point in my life, I have found nothing in the book that I do not understand now. And 20 years ago, that was not the case. So it's a growing thing. It's a wisdom thing. It's something that you develop and you grow within your soul. So, and it
In
takes
other words, you're telling us to hang in there.
hang in there. That's right. Hang in there, it's going to come, you know, it really will. And the best way to do that is to share with other readers that are wiser than you or have more experience than you, so you can understand the concepts better, really, you know. So, and that's what we do, right? All right.
Yes, and asking lots and lots of questions.
Asking lots of questions.
And I understand it one way, Diane understands it another, Rodney a different way, and Tim interprets it a totally different way.
That's right, and that's what it's meant to be.
That's what it's all about.
That's right, that's right, that's what it's supposed to be.
Take it in as you can.
That's right. Okay.
This is the story of the magnificent goal of mortal striving for the evolutionary worlds. And it all takes place even before human beings enter upon their moronic careers. All of this splendid development is attainable by material mortals on the inhabited worlds. The very first stage of that endless, incomprehensible career of paradise ascension and divinity attainment.
That's what it's all about, right? Divinity
You can do
attainment.
it right now, right here,
That's right.
in this mortal body.
And this mortal body.
Sure I can.
Yeah. Tim, would you take the next one? 10?
Hello, Tim. We lost him.
We lose Tim?
He went to fill up his glass.
Maybe. Hello, Tim. Well, Rodney, would you take the next?
I'm back. I'm sorry
Oh,
about that.
that's all right.
Just fine. But can you possibly imagine what sort of evolutionary mortals are now coming up from worlds long existing in the seventh epoch of settled light and life? It is such as these who go on to the Morontia worlds of the local universe capital to begin their ascension careers.
I'm sure the people that train us, or the beings that train us on the Morancha worlds, love to see these seventh stage settled light and life mortals come in, because they're on such a higher level to begin training them on.
Hey, Roger, they mentioned the word the seventh epics of settled light and life. That would be in section 4, right?
Right.
Where they talk about the 7 levels.
Yeah, that's the.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the paradise level, right? All right. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
All right, Roger. If the mortals of distraught Urantia could only view one of these more advanced worlds, long settled in life and life, they would never more question the wisdom of the evolutionary scheme of creation. Were there no future of eternal creature progression, still the superb evolutionary attainments of the mortal races on such settled worlds of perfected achievement would amply justify man's creation on the worlds of time and space.
So if we could take a little peek at what these other worlds are it would amplify our achievement and make us get there quicker ourselves, which would be really nice. And hopefully when we come out of quarantine, maybe this might be the case. We might do this. We lost Diane, unfortunately. Dropped the call. Let me see if she's still online here. Nope,
Is she having a hard time with her computer today?
Yeah, she's at the other house, and she was having problems with it earlier. Okay. We often ponder if the grand universe should be settled in light and life, would the ascending exquisite mortals still be destined to the core of finality? But we do not know. So even the beings that's writing this paper don't know that when the grand universe is totally settled in light and life, if the core of finality will be the goal of the mortals, which is interesting.
They have a long time to ponder that.
Yeah, they do. Long time.
So, Roger,
Yeah.
once the grand universe is settled, would that not be the supreme being?
That will be the time of the Supreme. That's right. The Supreme will be.
Evolutionary, the grand universe would still be functioning.
It would still be functioning, but we would be under the rule of the Supreme Being. And the Supreme Being will be in full fruition. And they believe that the Supreme Being will be resident in the 7th super universe. So that's our universe. So it's kind of interesting. Okay. Millie, would you take number 7, please?
Yes, 7, the first or planetary stage. This epoch extends from the appearance of the mortal Morancha temple at the new planetary headquarters to the time of the settling of the entire system in light and life. This age is inaugurated by the Trinity Teacher Sons at the close of their successive world missions, when the planetary prince is elevated to the status of planetary sovereign by the mandate and personal presence of the Paradise Bestowal Son of that sphere. Concomitant within, therewith, the finaliters inaugurate their active participation in planetary affairs.
Okay, now, don't get confused in this paper, because it goes back in section 7 here. It's going back to the first of the planetary stage, right? It talked about all 7, and now we're going back to the first one, or when we first go into light and life. Okay, so this is the first planetary stage, and it's talking about here that the Morancha temple, which we talked about before, comes down at this point, or is created here on this planet, and at that point, it's inaugurated by a Trinity Teacher Son, right? And the planetary prince, which will be whom for us? That will be Machiavintia Melchizedek, will be elevated to the sovereign of the planet, right? And that will happen by the Paradise Bestowal Son, which will be Michael, coming back and elevating Macavintia to planetary sovereign. Okay? And at the same time, at that point, the Finalitors, that's gone all the way up and come back, will start the participation in the planetary administration of the affairs of the planet. Alright. Tim, would you take the next one, please? If y'all see Diane come back on, please let me know.
To outward and visible appearances, the actual rulers or directors of such a world settled in light and life are the material sons and daughters, the planetary Adam and Eve. The Finalitors are invisible, as also is the planetary sovereign, except when in the Morancha temple. The actual and literal heads of the planetary regime are therefore the material sons and daughters. It is the knowledge of these arrangements that has given prestige to the ideal of kings and queens throughout the universe realms. And the kings and queens are a great success under these ideal circumstances, when a world can command such high personalities to act in behalf of still higher but invisible rulers.
Okay, so the Adams and Eves are considered our physical rulers at this point, right? And that's why they're treated like kings and queens, right? Because they really do become the king and the queen of the local planet and become the material directors of all affairs on the planet. Now, if you go to the Morancha temple, you can visualize, meaning they'll have visualizations where you can actually see the planetary sovereign, which would be Macavintia Melchizedek. Or if the Creator Son is present, they would visualize him for us also. And sometimes the Finalitors. So that'd be kind of nice to be able to go there and see him. But this only happens to high-level mortals who's on a high spiritual level, because they're the only ones that can visualize them and understand it, right? So with learning this information and learning about your place in the cosmos, there are benefits of doing this, and this is one of them, right? Rodney, would you take the next one?
Okay, Roger. When such an era is attained on your world, no doubt Macavintia Melchizedek, now the vicegerent planetary prince of Urantia, will occupy the seat of the planetary sovereign, and it has long been conjectured on Jerusalem that he will be accompanied by a son and daughter of the Urantia, Adam and Eve, who are now held on Adentia as wards of the Most Highs of Melchizedek. These children of Adam might so serve on Urantia in association with the Melchizedek sovereign, since they were deprived of procreative powers almost 37,000 years ago, at the time they gave up their material bodies on Urantia in preparation for transit to Adentia.
Okay, so the children of Adam and Eve, one or a pair of them, will come back to this planet with Macavintia Melchizedek as our Adam and Eve for the planet. They will be our king and queen in essence. So they will come back, and they will be the our representation from Adentia, and they are right now on hold in Norlashadek by the Most Highs. Yes, dear. Are you?
I'm back on, honey.
You're back on?
I cannot get back on.
Oh, you can't get back on. Did you try rebooting your computer?
No.
Okay, reboot your computer, and when it comes back on, sign back on Skype. And when I see you signing back on, I'll add you back in. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
So they'll be our king and queen.
They will be our king and queen. That's right. And they're just waiting. They're in preparation right now to do that when Macavintia comes back and we reach our era of light and life.
So hey Roger, I had a question.
Yeah.
Our system sovereign right now is Lanaforge.
Right. Yeah. Our system sovereign is LanaForge. That's
Right,
correct.
but the planetary sovereign right now is going to be Christ Michael, and then when it settles on light and life, Akaventa Melchizedek will take over.
Well, technically, our planetary sovereign is Michael, is Jesus, right? And he's also the sovereign of the local universe. So he can hold both things, but he has given the job of our planetary sovereign to Machiavellian Melchizedek, and Melchizedek has not come to take over the reins of that as of yet. And that's probably because of the Lucifer rebellion. They're probably waiting until Lucifer is completely judged and the quarantine is lifted on this planet and everything will go back to normal. And that's probably what they're waiting for with Melchizedek, is just the ruling of the Ancients of Days. But that will happen.
So of course we know the difference between a constellation and a system and a planet.
Right. Yes.
Okay,
We do.
thank you.
Let's see, Millie, I think you're back up again.
Okay. This settled age continues on and on until every inhabited planet in the system attains the era of stabilization. And then, when the youngest world, the last to achieve light and life, has experienced such settledness for 1 millennium of system time, the entire system enters the stabilized status, and the individual worlds are ushered into the system epoch of the era of light and life.
So when our entire system, every planet in our system reaches light and life, that's when this will happen, right? Then we'll be ushered into the epic era of light and life for the system, okay? So, and we're talking about 100 local universes and all the planets associated. That's about 10,000 planets. All right?
So once again, how long is a millennium?
Around 1,000 years is what they say, Rodney. But that's 1,000 years of system time, though they're talking about, not planetary time normally. So that would be a system time. So that we'd have to calculate that out to figure out how many Earth years that would be, you know. And
Is that standard time, or
yeah, that's standard time. That's the system is the standard time.
which should probably be about 340 Earth years?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. 340 Earth year times 1,000, so it'd be 340,000 years, something like that.
Oh,
So, okay, number 8, the second or system stage. Tim, would you take this one, please?
I love the Urantia book. Section 8, the second or system stage. When an entire system becomes settled in light and life, a new order of government is inaugurated. The planetary sovereigns become members of the system conclave. And this
Conclave. It's conclave, Tim.
conclave,
Yeah.
and this new administrative body, subject to the veto of the Constellation Fathers, is supreme in authority. That would be the Veronadex.
Yeah.
Such a system of inhabited worlds become virtually self-governing. The system legislative assembly is constituted on the headquarters world, and each planet sends its 10 representatives thereto. Courts are now established on the system capitals, and only appeals are taken to the universe headquarters.
Okay, so at this point, when the
Diane
planetary...
is back.
Yeah, I added her back to the group here.
thank you.
At this point, the planetary sovereigns would all become members of the system conclave, so there'd be thousands of them, right? And they become the administrative body in place of the Most Highs, right? And so the Constellation Fathers of the Most Highs will still have the supreme authority, but they will follow the lead of their planetary sovereigns at that point, right? And let them become self-governing. Okay, and then the courts of the system basically would decide most things, but there will be courts established on the system capitals, and at that point, only the appeals are taken to the universe headquarters, which would be Uversa and the Ancients of Days, right? So it relieves some of the load on the Ancients of Days. All right. Kind of hard to keep all these things together, right? All right, Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
With the settling of the system, the assigned sentinel, representative of the super universe supreme executive, becomes a volunteer advisor to the system Supreme Court and actual presiding officer of the new legislative assembly.
Okay, so the assigned sentinel, this is the being that represents the paradise, make sure everything is running copacetic and everything, becomes a volunteer advisor to the system Supreme Court and the presiding officer over the legislative assembly, which would be the planetary sovereigns, right? All right. After the settling of an entire system in light and life, the system sovereigns will no more come and go. Such a sovereign remains perpetually at the head of his system. The assistant sovereigns continue to change as in former ages. Now, who's our system sovereign?
Lanaforge?
Lanaforge, that's right. So when the entire systems is settled in light and life, Lanaforge, the system sovereign, would be the permanent head of the system at that point, right? But the way it talks about Lanaforge in the Urantia book, it's questionable whether he's a temporary sovereign for our system or if he's going to be the permanent sovereign, right? But right now he is the sovereign of our universe. So we may eventually get another system sovereign and he would be the permanent one. But if not, Lanaforge would take over that
So,
responsibility.
hey Roger, a system is basically about 1,000 planets, correct?
Yeah, that's
I know
right.
you can read about it in
Yeah,
paper 15.
yeah,
I'm not sure on the section.
yeah, you sure can. All right, Diane, would you take the next one?
Okay. During the epoch of stabilization, for the first time, Mitsuniters come from the universe headquarter worlds of their sojourn to act as counselors to the legislative assemblies and advisors to the educational
Adjudicational. Adjudicational.
Adjudicational
Tribunal.
tribunals.
Yeah.
These Mitsuniters also carry on certain efforts to inculcate new moda meanings of supreme value into the teaching enterprises which they sponsor jointly with the Finaliters. What the material sons did for the mortal races biologically, the Mitsunite creatures now do for these unified and glorified humans in the ever-advancing realms of philosophy and spiritualized thinking.
Okay, so we know the Mitsuniters have something to do with the Havona level, right? The Havona
With the
ring.
what?
Havona level, the 7 rings of Havona.
Right.
They're basically Mitsunite planets. So
You mean the 7 circuits?
the 7
Of Havona?
circuits of Havona. That's right. So
Weren't these the individuals that weren't created but yet exist?
that's right. They were eventuated.
Eventuated.
Yeah, Mitsuniters are eventuated. So at this point, these eventuated beings will come down and help our realm become more spiritualized and more and advance us philosophically. Okay, I guess because they're on such a higher level, they come down from the Havona rings to try to bring us closer to the Havona spheres, or the level of Havona thinking, even in the physical sense. So it's kind of interesting that they would come. All right, Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes. On the inhabited worlds, the teacher sons become voluntary collaborators with the Finaliters And these same teacher sons also accompany the Finalators to the mansion worlds when those spheres are no longer to be utilized as differential receiving worlds after the entire system is settled in light and life. At least this is true by the time the entire constellation has thus evolved. But there are no groups that far advanced in Nebadon.
So this is way in the future because we're not even close there, right? But at this point, the teacher sons will become collaborator with the Finalators. So some of us may be even part of that by the time that happens. You know, as part of our
Roger,
future.
this is a good time for me to ask this question.
Yeah.
I would think that perhaps the first super universe, that a system, perhaps even a universe, has already gone into light and love. And that's how they know that these things happen, because they've already happened to one system or one universe.
You would think so, Rodney, but it does state that as far as they know, no system has actually settled, no local universe is totally settled in light and life. So
Well,
if
that's
no,
what's stated. I can't remember that.
yeah, it is stated. So if no local universe is completely stated in light and life in all the 7 super universes, then this is speculation, or this is the way this has been taught by the teacher's sons and that sort of thing to other universes. So that's how they know this is what
Yeah,
is.
because that was my next question.
Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen anyway.
If none of this, if no system has been settled in light and life,
Yeah,
this is more or less the plan.
this is the plan, Rodney. Right. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
So these advanced teachings are, it's not from experience, it's just the plan.
Yeah, it's the plan of the super universe, really. You know, so kind of interesting, isn't it? That has not happened anywhere yet. All right, Tim, would you take the next paragraph, please?
We are not permitted to reveal the nature of the work of the Finalators who will supervise such rededicated mansion worlds. You have, however, been informed that there are throughout the universes various types of intelligent creatures who have not been portrayed in these narratives.
Now, this is a very important paragraph because it tells us, they don't tell us all the different creatures in the Urantia, but there's just not enough room, right? So there's lots and lots of other types of beings, types of creatures that are out there in the 7 super universes that they have not even told us about, right?
Hey Roger, they mentioned the word rededicated mansions worlds.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, that's when the mansion worlds are no longer used as a training world for mortals coming up from the planets, basically. And that will eventually happen when all the super universe reaches light and life. There will be no purpose in having the mansion worlds because the mortals that will come at that point will already be a level when they translate or when they die of the system, right? So they won't need to go through the training and the experience of the mansion worlds. Okay, so and the purpose of the mansion worlds is to train mortals. So that's what they're talking about, rededicated mansion worlds. These worlds will be reused for Finalators and by the Finalators to train other creatures, probably. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm up. Huh. And now as the system, one by one, becomes settled in light by virtue of the progress of their component worlds, the time comes when the last system in a given constellation attains stabilization, and the universe administrators administrators, the Master Sun, the Union of Days, and the bright morning star arrive on the capital of the constellation to proclaim the Most High's, the unqualified rulers of the newly perfected family of 100 settled systems of inhabited worlds. Now this must have happened because they talk about this like it has happened at other systems. So there must be some system in the seven super universe that's reached light and life, right? So at that point, the Master Sun, the Union of Days, the bright morning star proclaim the Most Highs as the unqualified rulers of this new family. Now that's why they are called the Most Highs, right? Because they will eventually be proclaimed the ruler of the settled system of inhabited worlds, all 100.
And that would be the Veronidic Sons, correct?
That's right.
And then they also mentioned the word Master Sun is just another way of saying the Creator Son who has gained absolute authority of his local universe.
That's right. A
It's
Master
a step
Sun.
up.
A Master Son is one who's finished all 7 of his bestowals and earned sovereignty of his local universe, right? All right. And we know that our son, Michael, or Jesus of Nazareth, is a Master Son now, right?
And then they mentioned the bright morning star. Is that Gabriel?
Yeah.
And there's only one
There's only
per
one.
local universe, correct?
One per local universe, bright morning star, and ours is Gabriel. And they may all be called Gabriel. We don't know, right? You know, they may have different names too. Okay. All right. Did I just read? I think I did. Diane, would you take the next one?
9. The third or constellation stage. 1. The unification of a whole constellation of systems is attended by new distributions of executive authority and additional readjustments of universe administration. This epic witnessed advanced attainment on every inhabited world, but is particularly characterized by readjustments on the constellation headquarters, with marked modification of relationships with both the system's supervision and the local universe.
Excuse me.
During this age, many constellation and universe activities are transferred to the system capitals, and the representatives of the super universe assume new and more intimate relations with the planetary system and universe rulers. Concomitant with these new associations, certain super universe administrators establish themselves on the constellation capitals as volunteer advisors to the Most High Fathers.
So this way, the super universe administrators become helpers for the Most Highs to help them along and get used to their new positions and that sort of thing, right? So, all right. Millie, could you take the next one, please? Millie?
Really, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. When a constellation is thus settled in light and life, the legislative function ceases, and the House of System Sovereign, presided over by Most Highs, functions instead. Now, for the first time, such administrative groups deal directly with the super-universe government in matters pertaining to Havona and Paradise relationships. Otherwise, the constellation remains related to the local universe as before. From stage to stage, in the settled life and
Unification.
In the settled life, the unification continue to administer the constellation Urantia worlds.
All right.
Tell me about unification.
Yeah.
What's that word?
Let me go up here and I'll give you.
Hey, Roger.
Yes.
They mentioned the word super universe government. Who exactly is that? Is that all of them in that system?
The super universe government, it would be. Oops. I'm sorry, y'all. The super universe government. Hang on, I went.
There it is.
Okay, here we go. let me give you a breakdown of the, can I tell you what unification is and you can come back to
Yes.
that? Okay. Let me go over here. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me try it on this one. I'd like y'all to be able to see this when we do it. Here we go. There we go. Unification. Unification administer the constellation Morontia worlds. We live with them on Adentia when we get to Adentia. They are the children of the Creator Son and the Mother Spirit. They do not function beyond the constellation headquarters. They're administrator type beings, right? They're known for their artistic skill and social adaptability. They're the largest group associated with Celestial Ardians. Okay, they are non-reproducing beings existing on a plane between material suns and spirit-fused mortals. 70 different forms. So they are kind of in between the material suns and the spirit-fused mortals, right? And they are the permanent population of the constellation worlds, right? And they're possibly the future citizens of Havona. Now let's
So
go
they never
back.
leave the constellations, correct?
Pardon me?
They never leave the constellations.
They never leave the constellations. They
And
do
then
say...
there's that word, the super universe government.
That's right, that's right. So let's go back to the paragraphs, right? Now here it says, from the stage to stage in the settled life of unification continue to administer the constellation Morontia world. So they stay on the constellation and keep administrating the constellation worlds even after everything is settled in light and life. Did that answer your questions, Miller?
Yes, that's good for me.
Okay.
I see where he was talking about these settlements before that. Now, for the first time, such administrative groups deal directly with the super universe government.
That's right, because up to that point they only dealt with the local universe government, right? Up to this point.
And
And
now they deal with the super universe government.
that's right, they would be in communication with the super universe at this point,
And
right?
that's made up of representatives from all the different universes.
That's right, that's right.
Does that include like the system, the constellation, and the Ancients of Days, or just another way of saying anybody, like the universal censors, the deity of judgment, just because
No,
it's
they would be dealing mostly with the Ancients of Days on the super universe level, right? They would be in communication with them at that point, right?
okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's find the right clicker here. Okay. Who just read? Millie? Did you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Tim, would you take the next one?
When a constellation is thus settled and light and light, the legislative function ceases.
Just read
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, here it is. As the ages pass, the constellation fathers take over more and more of the detailed administrative or supervising functions which were formerly centered on the universe headquarters. By the attainment of the sixth stage of stabilization, these unified constellations will have reached the position of well-nigh complete autonomy.
Autonomy. Yeah.
Entrance upon the seventh stage of settledness will no doubt witness the exaltation of these rulers to the true dignity signified by their names, the Most Highs. To all intents and purposes, the constellation will then deal directly with the super universe rulers, while the local universe government will expand to grasp the responsibilities of new grand universe obligations.
Okay, and who are they talking about, the super universe rulers? We're talking about the Ancients of Days there, right? Y'all understand that?
And then they mention the 6th stage stabilization, or the 7th stage settleness. I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Well, we're still talking about the different stages, you know, the 1 through 7 stages of light and life. Right?
Okay, correct. Yeah, that would be in section 4, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right. Number 10. Rodney, would you take the next one?
All right, 10. The fourth or local universe stage. When a universe becomes settled in light and life, it soon swings into the established super universe circuits, and the Ancients of Days proclaim the establishment of the Supreme Council of Unlimited Authority. This new governing body consists of the 100 faithfuls of days, presided over by the Union of Days, and the first act of the Supreme Council is to acknowledge the continued sovereignty of the Master Creator's Son.
Okay, so let's think about this here. Okay, this Supreme Council consists of 100 faithful of days. What are the faithfuls of days? They are the paradise representation, right? Which is presided over by the Union of Days, which would be Emmanuel, right? And he is a paradise representative also, right? And so the first thing they do is they basically acknowledge the continued sovereignty of the Master Creator Son, which would be Michael. So as these beings, the faithful of days and the Union of Days, get the new authority and power, they turn around and automatically acknowledge the rule of Michael, right, or the Master Son, or the Master Son, whoever that is for each
Hey, Roger,
local stage. Yeah.
do you know what the super universe circuits are?
Yes, those are those 4 circuits we've talked about before, right? I got a slide on. Matter of fact, I'll probably show you the slide on those next time in the next paper. But that is the the personality circuit, the spirit circuit, the mind circuit, and the paradise circuit, right? The 4.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's
Circuits.
correct.
All right. All right. Okay, who's up here? Who just read? I'm sorry.
Brandon,
Huh?
I just read.
Okay, my turn then. The universe administration, as far as concerns Gabriel and the Father Melchizedek, is quite unchanged. The Council of Unlimited Authority is chiefly concerned with the new problems and new conditions arising out of the advanced status of light and life. So Gabriel's still the chief executive along with the Father Melchizedek, right? Diane, would you take the next one, please?
The Associate Inspector now mobilizes all assigned sentinels to constitute the stabilization corps of the local universe, and asks the Father Melchizedek to share its supervision with him. And now, for the first time, a corps of the inspired Trinity spirits are assigned to the service of the Union of Days.
Okay, so we see how this changing as we get closer and closer to all the way to the 7th stage of light and life becomes more and more involved with the paradise rule and the local universe rule melding together and combining their forces, right? And that's what's happening at this point. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. The settling of an entire local universe in light and life inaugurates profound readjustments in the entire scheme of administration, from the individual inhabited worlds to the universe headquarters. New relationships extend down to the constellations and systems. The local universe mother spirit experiences new liaison relations with the master spirit of the super universe, and Gabriel establishes direct contact with the ancients of days to be effective when he, as a master son, may be absent from the headquarters world.
Okay, so notice here it says new relationships extend down to the constellations and the systems. What are we talking about? From the ancients of days, from the master universe, right? And the mother spirit has new relations with the master spirit of the super universe. That's the seventh master spirit. Remember the seven master spirits that surround paradise? Well, that's what they're talking about. So the creative mother spirit has new liaisons and new relationships with the seventh master spirit, okay? And Gabriel becomes closer in contact with the ancients of days, right? And really takes over so that the master son, or Michael, can be absent to go to paradise and do other things, right?
So, hey, Roger, what exactly is taking place when she has a new relationship with the master spirits and Gabriel?
That I cannot tell you, Tim. I have no idea what they're talking about there. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Tim, would you take the next one?
During this and subsequent ages, the magisterial sons continue to function as dispensational adjudicators, while 100 of these affable sons of paradise constitute the new high council of the bright morning star on the universe capital. Later on, and as requested by the system sovereigns, one of these magisterial sons will become the supreme counselor, stationed on the headquarters world of each local system until the seventh stage of unity is attained.
So remember, the magisterial sons are paradise sons, right? Avonal paradise sons.
And it says seventh stage.
And seventh stage, that's right. And they become a council for the bright morning star, which is Gabriel, right?
That's those 7 levels again?
Yep, it's the seven levels again. All right. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
During this epoch, the Trinity teacher sons are volunteer advisors, not only to the planetary sovereigns, but in groups of 3. They similarly serve the constellation fathers. And at last, these sons find their place in the local universe. For at this time, they are removed from the jurisdiction of the local creation and are assigned to the service of the Supreme Council of Unlimited Authority.
Okay, so the Trinity teacher sons becomes volunteer advisors at that point. Instead of being assigned, they're actually volunteers at this point, right? Which is their right. All right. The Finaliter Corps now, for the first time, acknowledges the jurisdiction of an extra paradise authority, the Supreme Council. Heretofore, the Finaliters have recognized no supervision this side of paradise. So, because of these changes, the Finaliters just recognizes the new authority of these councils because they come from paradise, right? So, and that's not been the case before.
So the Supreme Council is individuals that come from paradise?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But they don't name them, right?
Yeah, they're the Trinity teacher sons, or the
That's
volunteers.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Diane, would you take the next one?
The creator sons of such settled universes spend much of their time on paradise and its associated worlds and in counseling numerous finality groups serving throughout the love creation. In this way, the man of Michael will find a fuller fraternity of association with the glorified finality mortals.
It's interesting that this frees up the creator son to go to paradise and associate more with the Finaliters who we will be, right? So as this happens, Michael or Jesus as the person gets to fraternize more with the Finaliters or the mortals that's gone through this paradise of sin. So we continue to learn from our own creator son. Isn't that interesting? All right, Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes. Speculation concerning the function of these creator sons in connection with the outer universe now in process of preliminary assembly is wholly futile. But we all engage in such postulation from time to time. On attaining this fourth stage of development, the creator son becomes administratively free. The divine minister is progressively blending her ministry with that of the super-universe master spirit and the infinite spirit. There seems to be evolving a new and sublime relationship between the creator son, the creator spirit, creative spirit, the evening star, the teacher sons, and the ever-increasing phenolic core.
Isn't this interesting because the divine minister or the mother spirit has a new relationship with the super universe master spirit and the infinite spirit, like a trinity almost, right? And then there has developed this new relationship between the creator son, the creative spirit, and the evening stars and the teacher sons and the phenoliders. So these involvement with these beings changes and takes up new ideas and new
Hey,
ideas.
Roger.
Yeah,
They mentioned the outer universes. Is that the 4 outer space levels?
that's the 4 outer space levels. They also, there's all this speculation that the Michaels will move out into the outer space levels and possibly the phenoliders, right? To help settle these outer universes and manage these outer universes. So, and that's what they're talking about, this speculation concerning the creator sons and of the phenoliders in the outer universes. It's all speculation, but it's interesting to speculate, what's going to happen, right? All right, Tim, would you take the next one?
If Michael should ever leave Nebadon, Gabriel would undoubtedly become chief administrator with the Father Melchizedek as his associate. At the same time, new status would be imparted to all orders of permanent citizenship, such as Magisterial Sons, Univitatia, Midsnighters, Sustatia, and Spirit-fused mortals. But as long as evolution continues, the Seraphim and the Archangels will be required in the universe administration.
So the whole universe is constantly in flux, isn't it? I mean, everything just constantly changing.
I heard one person trying to ascribe the Urantia book some sort of contradiction. If I can remember right, it was on the truthbook.com, and I can get the quote for you, but just from memory, I'm not going to do that, but just from memory, it was something like, I think it was Emmanuel who, on the mount, who was the individual that went and seen him? Was it Emmanuel or Gabriel? And they weren't supposed to be able to leave, but yet they left and they were there with him. Do you ever remember who came to visit Michael when he was on that?
Yeah, there was one point where he was talking to Gabriel, Emmanuel, and Father Melchizedek.
I think it was Gabriel, and then we're told that he's not supposed to leave the system sovereign, but yet we find him on with Michael. So the question is, how is that?
Well, see, they don't say how he was there. He could have just been there through reflectivity, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't know exactly how this reflectivity works, but reflectivity would give an appearance of him being there even though he was still on the Capitol, right?
Okay, thank you.
So that's probably what happened in that particular case. It's not a contradiction at all. See, that's interesting that you mentioned that, Tim, though, but that's a good example of how lack of understanding how things work in the book gives you the impression that it's contradicted itself, right?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. All right. Let's go on.
That was well said, by the way. Thank you.
You sure? Rodney, would you take the next one?
We are, however, satisfied regarding 2 features of our speculations. If the Creator Sons are destined to the outer universes, the divine ministers will undoubtedly accompany them. We are Melchizedeks are to remain with the universes of their origin. We hope that the Melchizedeks are destined to play ever increasingly responsible parts in local universe government and administration.
Okay, so y'all think about this. They're talking about the divine ministers, right? We're talking about the creative mother spirits. And what they're saying is if the Michaels go out into the 4 outer space levels, they will have to have the divine ministers accompany them because they work as a pair, right? And we know that the divine ministers cannot leave their local universe, correct? So, the only way that could happen is if their job in the local universe, if they were to leave, is for the infinite spirit to take up their position and take care of that position while they are working outside their local universe. Does that make sense? So that's the only way a local universe mother spirit, local creative mother spirit could leave her creation. Because we know she has to be there to uphold everything. Right? Alright. 11. The minor and major sector stage. The minor and major sectors of the super universe do not figure directly in the plan of being settled in light and life. Isn't that interesting? Such an evolutionary progression pertains primarily to the local universes as a unit and concerns only the components of a local universe. A super universe is settled in light and life with all its component local universes has thus perfected. But not one of the 7 super universes has attained the level of progression even approaching this. That's what we were talking about earlier, Rodney.
Right.
They state here that none of the 7 super universes has even approached this, but they skip over the minor and major sectors because those are only really the local universes being divided up into groupings, right? So that's what they're talking about here. So the only thing that matters is the local universes in the 7 super universe, right? All right. Diane, would you take the next one, please, dear?
Okay. The minor sector age. As far as observations can penetrate, the 5th or minor sector stage of stabilization has exclusively to do with physical status and with the coordinate settling of 100 associated local universes in the established circuits of the super universe. Apparently none but the power centers and their associates are concerned in these realignments of the material creation.
And that's because the power centers are in charge of the circuits, right? So that's the only thing that...
What are they talking about, Roger, when they say physical status?
The physical status, the circuits are basically, the power directors are what keeps all these circuits going. So it's just the organization of how all the local universes are organized in the circuits, in these circuits that needs to be taken care of, right?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Right. The major sector age. Concerning the 6th stage or major sector stabilization, we can only conjecture since none of us have witnessed such an event. We can only conjecture since none of us have witnessed such an event. Nevertheless, we can postulate much concerning the administrative and other readjustments which would probably accompany such an advanced status of the inhabited worlds and their universe groupings.
Okay, so they're setting us up for what's coming up next here. All right.
So, it
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Roger, it almost sounds as if a minor sector age has happened in one of the super universes. However, the major sector age has never happened yet.
On any of them, that's
On
right.
any.
On any of them, that's right. Yeah, they're just conjecturing it, right? Right. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Since the minor sector status has to do with coordinate physical equilibrium, we infer that major sector unification will be concerned with certain new intellectual levels of attainment, possibly some advanced achievement in the supreme realization of cosmic wisdom.
That's all they have to say about it. So,
by physical equilibrium?
We're talking about the power centers keeping all the systems and that sort of thing in proper alignment, basically.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Yeah, it's keeping the cosmos as we know it, right? All right, Rodney, would you take the next one?
We arrive at conclusions regarding the readjustments, which would probably attend the realization of
Hitherto.
hitherto unattained levels of evolutionary progress by observing the results of such achievements on the individual worlds and in the experience of individual mortals living on these older and highly developed spheres.
So they give these conclusions by what's happened to mortals previously, right? As they go through the settlement and light and life and go on to paradise. And since the universe follows the mortal progression, it's proper to assume the conclusion of the universe is following suit, doing the same things, right? So.
Do you think that they have had revelations on all these other planets too?
I'm sure they probably do, Millie, sooner or later, but they all happen at different times, right? And because our revelation, the first two parts came from Nebadon, right? The third part is the history of the world, which is the memories of the Midwayers, and the fourth part is recorded from a guardian angel assigned to the Apostle Andrew, and the Midwayers kept track of that too. So I'm sure every planet they keep track of these things just like they have on ours, and sooner or later when the planet's ready for their revelation, the same sort of thing happens.
Hey, Roger, I had a question.
Yeah.
With so much Jesus information out there today, I mean, the Jesus seminars and theology, which would challenge the Urantia papers, it's fair to say that we have an actual eyewitness, which would be the watch care of Andrew.
That's
an
right.
Angel.
Yeah, that's correct. So the
So it
information.
would challenge, not only challenge, but also open up new avenues for those individuals, which probably wouldn't believe it, but
Oh yeah, it would expand their consciousness beyond imagination, wouldn't it?
it's fair to say that we do have an eyewitness.
Yeah. Well, the first time I read the Jesus papers, I was just amazed at how the personality of Jesus comes through the papers. It's just, you do not get that from the New Testament. You do not get the true personality of Jesus like you do in the Urantia book. Urantia book, if you listen to the Jesus papers in the Urantia book, he becomes your friend, your confidant, your everything that you would expect out of a sovereign of the universe is there in the Jesus papers, and it's just not in the New Testament, unfortunately.
There's a lot of anger and disappointment and disbelief in the New Testament.
There is. I mean,
There's not that much of it in the Jesus papers.
There's not.
You know, and I bring this up because there's so many arguments over the smallest little things about how many cups were on the table to the Last Supper, where it was it on a roof, or was it in a building? It's just ignorance.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, let's keep going. Who's next? I've lost who's read.
I just read.
Oh, okay, I'm up then. Let it be made clear the administrative mechanisms and the governmental techniques of a universe or a super universe cannot in any manner limit or retard the evolutionary development of spiritual progress of an individual inhabited planet or any individual mortal on such a sphere. Alright, so regardless of how universe is administered or how things change, it still does not affect us in our ascension plan, basically. Diane, would you take the next one, please?
In some of the older universes, we find worlds settled in the fifth and sixth stages of light and life, even far extended into the seventh epoch, whose local systems are not yet settled in light. Younger planets may delay system unification, This does not in the least handicap the progress of an older and advanced world. Neither can environmental limitations, even on an isolated world, force the personal attainment of the individual mortal. Jesus of Nazareth, as a man among men, personally achieved the status of light and life over 1900 years ago on Urantia.
There it is, right? So that's what they're saying is Jesus has done it, so we can also do it individually, personally, right?
The paper before said that techniques of the universe or super universe cannot in any manner limit or retard our evolutionary development. And you said, that they can't change us. They might enhance it, but something they might enhance our development.
That's right. Might enhance it, but they can't keep us.
They can't limit it or retard it.
That's right. That's right. Billy, would you take the next one?
It is by observing what takes place on long settled worlds that we arrive at fairly reliable conclusions as to what will happen when a whole super universe is settled in light, even if we cannot safely postulate the event of the stabilization of the 7 super universes.
So they can postulate on what's happened in the planets that settled in light and life, what should happen in the super universes, right? Tim, would you take the next one, number 12?
Or super universe stage, we cannot positively forecast what would occur when a super universe become settled in light, because such an event has never factualized. From the teachings of the Melchizedek, which have never been contradicted, we infer that sweeping changes would be made in the entire organization and administration of every unit of the creation of time and space, extending from the inhabited worlds to the super universe headquarters.
So since this has never happened, they can't say for sure exactly what's going to happen, but this is what they postulate to happen by what's taught by the Melchizedeks, right? All right. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
It is generally believed that large numbers of the otherwise unattached creature trinitized suns are to be assembled on the headquarters and provisional capitals of the settled super universes. This may be in anticipation of the sometime arrival of outer spacers on their way into Nirvana and paradise, but we really do not know.
Yeah, so they're speculating that these outer spacers will be coming through, right?
Outer spacers.
Right. If and when a super universe should be settled in light and life, we believe that the now advisory, unqualified supervisors of the Supreme would become the high administrative body on the headquarters worlds of the super universe. These are the personalities who are able to contact directly with the Absonite administrators, who will forthwith become active in the settled super universe. Although these unqualified supervisors have long functions as advisors and counselors in advanced evolutionary units of creations, they do not assume administrative responsibilities until the authority of the Supreme Being becomes sovereign. And what are they talking about, these unqualified supervisors of the Supreme? This is when the Supreme Being has become fully functional, and all 7 of the super universes will be settled in light and life, right? All right. Diane, would you take the next one, please?
The unqualified supervisors of the Supreme, who function more extensively during this epoch, are not finite, absonite, ultimate, or infinite. They are supremacy and only represent God the Supreme. They are the personalization of time-space supremacy, and therefore do not function in Herona. They function only as supreme unifiers. They may possibly be involved in a technique of universe reflectivity, but we are not certain.
Since this has not happened, no one can say for sure, right? And this is in the future. This is all speculation. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
None of us entertains a satisfactory concept of what will happen when the grand universe, that is the 7 super universes as dependent on Havona, become entirely settled in light and light. That event will undoubtedly be the most profound occurrence in the annals of eternity since the appearance of the central universe. There are those who hold that the Supreme Being himself will emerge from Havona, mystery enshrouding his spirit person, and will become residential on the headquarters of the 7th super universe as the almighty and experiential sovereign of the perfected creations of time and space, but we really do not know.
How many times have you seen that really do not know in these papers? And the other thing is, why would he emerge in the 7th super universe? Because it would be the last one to be settled in light and life, right? And this was presented by a mighty messenger temporarily assigned to the Archangel Council on Urantia, right?
Alright, we got through it.
We got through it. Next time, paper 56, Universal Unity. That's our last paper in the 2nd section, y'all. Y'all believe this?
Yeah.
We made it through 2 whole sessions.
Hey, Roger, do you
sections.
think we can really study paper 56? I know one of the things you said on your MP3,
Yeah.
your previous ones,
Uh-huh.
you were like, y'all really want to study this paper? I mean, in depth, I really like that.
Yeah.
Because that's a hard one.
It is a hard one, and I'm at a totally different place teaching this one than I was the last time I taught it, you know? So probably, I need to listen to the old video out there we have on this somewhere.
It should be in more videos.
Yeah, it should be. So I'll have to review that before we start teaching this. And
You mean you've forgotten? Is that what you just said?
no, I'm not forgotten. My concepts have been expanded greatly since the last time I taught this. Because since the last time I taught this, you know, there's been a lot happened, and we've gone through the first 2 parts of the paper and complete again. So it's kind of refreshed some of the things that I needed to cover. And it's an interesting paper. There's a lot in it. I hope I don't overteach it. So we'll see how we do. It's going to take more than 1 session to get through it. I can tell you that, right? So
Well, part 3, we'll have 63 papers to go.
that's right. That's right.
Oh, man.
Well,
That's
let's
great, though. I love it.
yeah. Let's
I'm
set,
looking forward to part 3. I really enjoy part 3.
yeah. We'll have a good
Excuse my
time. in part
highlighter
three.
a lot.
Yeah, we'll have a good time on that. Let's say a little prayer and we'll close out for tonight. I got a cat scratching over here. Rodney, would you like to close us in prayer tonight?
Sure, Roger. Heavenly Father, we are very thankful that we've had the time and opportunity to study this paper on the spheres of light and life, to understand, to try and understand what is to become during this era. And we pray and hope to take this information and spread it with others. And in all things, your will be done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you at home for joining us. Please come see us again.